So we've got the audio control 4s up in the dashboard, all taken care of. We've got the 6.5s down here in the kick panels, also on that side. In the rear SSV Works pods. I know it's hard to see, but got the grills on. Now, I've just put polyfill inside the enclosure, mainly because these enclosures come with a polyfill liner that you put on the back wall. We took the sub out to verify how the box was mounted because the customer had stated that they had to go back to the previous shop because the enclosure had fallen off the back door. On these enclosures for the sub, on the back side, behind each one of these holes, they have these little threaded inserts, and you can see the edge of one right there, and then you can see that one right there. This is kind of a quality control issue. I've talked to Pack about it, or Stinger. I'm hoping they take care of it. These just don't work because, as you can see, I'm holding one in my hand because this one is missing. So I'm gonna have to try and press this back in place, or if it won't go back in place and line up and stay where it needs to be, what I have to do is I drill this out and I put in my own threaded inserts that are better. They're not these back ones, they're actual sleeves that go in there. And then I can move on with probably up at the DSP, so I can hook up the T-harness and I can tone everything, make sure every speaker is toning correctly. This is how it looks when I do it. So you pop out the plastic, you pull out the HVAC, and you have access to this module. This is basically the audio control module. This is the plug the T-harness is gonna go to. Shift it, put it all the way back, unplug the cable in the front where the USB is, right over there. And then you can rotate this without messing up the 4-wheel drive plug, right there. Rotate it, then you can put it back in park, shut your key off. Now this gives you access to this giant cavity down here. So like I said before, you could fit a small baby down there. That's where I put the DSP. It'll be mounted down there. And then my RCAs can run along the side of the transmission, drop down, and go underneath the seat. Now on this one, I'm gonna be using the Axis DSP, which is the, hard to see here, DSP-L FD3. I'm doing the L, which is the light, so that only gives you front, rear, and sub. Well, the Bronco has the dash speakers and the kick panels paralleled. From the factory, the dash speakers have their own little capacitor on them, so they're crossed over. What I do is put a bass blocker on the dash speakers and leave them paralleled. Now, if a customer wants to go to the next level up, we do a 6-channel amp under one seat and then a sub amp under the other. And then the 6-channel allows me to amplify all 6 speakers. But when you only have 4 channels, you can't amplify all of them unless you parallel. So I put an inline bass blocker, which Pack makes them. I put those on there, and it's a little bit of a lower crossover point also, you have to realize, because audio control speakers are not 4 ohm, they're 3 ohm. They do that on purpose so you can get more power out of your radio or your amp, but that also changes the crossover point on the inline bass blocker, so you gotta remember that. Most important thing when doing an Axis DSP, you take the module and you plug it in and you update it. There is an app, it's the Axis Updater. You'll plug this in, go to firmware, make sure you update the firmware. If it says there isn't one, go ahead and click Force Update and then update the firmware. The reason being is this thing might have been made 9 months ago, a year ago. It's been sitting in a warehouse, or it had to come on a boat across the ocean, come here. Then it went and sat in a warehouse. So the firmware that's on here is outdated, definitely. But the other issue is Broncos get over-the-air updates from Ford. So this thing's getting updates all the time. So you definitely want to make sure you plug that in, do the update. You will not believe how many times people have problems with the interfaces, and it's because they didn't update it. Real easy fix. Micro USB, plug it in, Axis Updater, download it, do the update, and you're good to go. Here's the T-harness, so it's ready to go. So this will plug in up there at the audio control module. This is where the 2 harnesses will plug into. So I unplug from the control module, plug into here. This goes control module. Bass knob, which I always put right there underneath the HVAC, so that'll be the bass knob. We've got the load resistors right here on the output side of the factory system. That way the factory radio doesn't freak out, still sees the load. DSP, Coming out here, we got the RCAs. We're gonna run our RCAs. We got 3-foot RCAs to run. This is our speed wire. Go into our plugs. These plug right into the 5-channel audio control amp. Got the remote turn on. So I've got the interior back together, the console. So right here is where you plug in your T-harness. I've got the DSP down here underneath the console. The wiring runs down and then drops out right there to go under where the amp's gonna go. So the number one place in any install that kind of gets neglected is under the hood. And the reason why is it's not sexy, there's nothing, most people don't look under here, but this is how any shop, I can tell if your shop is a good shop, if you're a hack shop, if the install, if I want to know what kind of install I'm getting ready to get into, all I got to do is look at how you connected it to battery. The previous shop just had the wire hooked up here on the post and bent down, and then the fuse was just laying down there. The wire just kind of draped over, no braiding, no nothing. Kind of lets you know it's going to be a sloppy install. So we've got this ran through. I run power and ground on the Broncos, so I ground up here at the battery, and this will go up onto this ledge and mount right there, and then the power wire will come over and go to the positive, and the ground wire will go right here to the negative. And then the way that I do the mount up there, so I've got pretty thick ballistic plastic here. You'll cut it, put yourself a nice little groove in it so you can bend it. Then I have these little metal L brackets that I got off Amazon, which are just useful for so many things. Mount there. There's the fuse holder mount. And then I use these Stinger wire guides. So what's gonna happen is I have double-sided tape on here, and if people have a problem with 3M tape, if you think it doesn't really work, I was that same person. I couldn't believe they hold body moldings on a car because they never seemed to hold for me until I learned about adhesion promoter. So if you're not using the adhesion promoter, 3M tape does not work correctly. This creates a chemical bond. You use this is what you're using to hold the body moldings on, it's not coming off. So I get this at Dawn Enterprises. I'm sure there's other companies that make it, but that's their brand, I believe. So I have that just for some stick down so it stays in place. So I'll peel that off, I'll stick it down on that metal rail. Then right here is where my screw goes through to that metal bracket that's going up on the side vertically, and that tags it in. Then I can just snap my fuse holder right there, take my wires, I'll run the power through this, the ground through this, that keeps them nice and straight, and then I can come off and go to the battery, and I have no tension that's being put on my plate. It's just simple little things like that. It takes about an extra 20 minutes to do that, to make this piece. But any shop, if they're gonna ever work on the Bronco, or if they gotta look at something I did, if they pop the hood and they see that, they pretty much know the install throughout. It's gonna be solid. All the wires are braided. Everything is mounted, nice, clean, went through the effort, the extra 20 minutes to make this. So you kind of know you're getting into a pretty decent install, and you can kind of bypass troubleshooting the simple stuff. Then you know you're gonna probably look at something else, but nobody should ever be touching my installs. But let's go ahead and get back on this. And that's it. We are all finished. It's been tuned. There's the amp install underneath the driver's seat. I fold their floor mat back underneath because these aren't super cheap. Back in the day when they had cheaper ones, we would cut them, you know, with a pair of scissors to give the amp room, but I leave it up to the customer if they want to cut it or what they want to do, so I roll it back. That's why it may look a little odd right there. That's what I wanted. I wanted to give them a nice, loud, clean system. Now their sub actually does the job. Perfect. Now I just got to call them up and tell them to come pick it up. Now, if you're somebody who's had their car messed up by another shop, it's very unfortunate, but always know that there's a shop like me that can make it right, so you don't have that horrible experience with our industry and you realize that you just went to the wrong place and your cars can't be done properly. I'm Cape Sipes, Custom Audio Reimagined. Take it easy.